Good Monday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Deshaun Watson suspension and appeal. NFL, Browns, Watson waiting to find out what that final verdict will be in terms of games suspended. Former NFLPA president Dominique Foxworth on ESPN's Get Up talks about why he thinks Roger Goodell laid out this appeal process the way he did, with Goodell having the final say-so. And remember, Foxworth, a former NFLPA president.
The process about perception. Rather than in previous cases, Roger Goodell makes a ruling and we all talk about how bad it is and how dumb his ruling is. Now, instead, he put Judge Robinson out there. She made the decision. And then we talk about how bad it is and how stupid it is. And now Roger can come in like a white knight on his horse and say, no, I will save the day. I am with the people. I recognize how seriously we should take this. And the NFL stands against mistreating women. And in actuality, I think this is a part of it that frustrates me the most. And I like Roger Goodell. I think his job is incredibly hard, and I think he's a smart and decent man. All that aside, his incentives and his responsibility is to protect the profitability of the National Football League. And I think that they are trying to position themselves as if they are a progressive organization that's on the right side of history, when in actuality, we know how the NFL feels about violence, sexual and otherwise, against women, by the fact that when Deshaun Watson was trying to get traded, every team that didn't have a quarterback was beating his door down, and he got the richest contract in the history of professional football, all guaranteed. So, if you care about the things the way you say you care about them, and if you want to be an organization that represents these progressive causes that you are presenting yourself as, then you have to understand that it's not just about making these big-time decisions, but it's about all the other small decisions in between.
And again, I point out, Foxworth was the president of the NFLPA back in 2012. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We got a ton of them, a lot of them about this appeal process, Roger Goodell and the NFLPA.
Yeah, my name is Tim. I'm calling from Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm an avid Cleveland Browns fan, and I have a theory on why Roger Goodell and the NFL are going after Deshaun Watson like they are. I think that they're upset that the Cleveland Browns signed such a large contract with Deshaun Watson, upsetting their other team's efforts to recruit players. So I think that they're just mad at the Browns for offering such a large contract to Deshaun, and this is payback time for upsetting their business plan. Thank you.
This is Warnell. Come from Cleveland, cheering for the Browns. I want to comment on the Deshaun Watson suspension and appeal by the NFL. The NFL is very disgraced, and they're very mad at the Cleveland Browns, first of all, for giving him that $230 million guaranteed contract. So, if that's being said, they're going to make their way and possible, do everything they can do to make him be banned for at least this year and have to reapply to be eligible to play next year. They are very mad at the Browns for giving him that contract, so they're going to try to screw him over, and that's how they do Cleveland all the time. Let's go Browns. Woof, woof. Thanks for the call.
All right, we appreciate it. This is from Pro Football Talk, Peter King article. One influential NFL person told me on this trip doesn't sit well with the league that the 31 other owners that the Browns rigged Watson's contract so the suspension would cause him to lose only a fraction of his 2022 compensation. Suspension of 6 games, for instance, mean Watson would be docked 6/18. There are 18 game weeks, including buys. So of his $1.035 million, he would lose only $344,000 or so. Robinson's suspension, no additional fine. Then the 6 games game check stands. It means Watson would lose 0.7% of his $46 million total compensation for the year. That is almost absurd beyond words. I expect Harvey to be under pressure to levy multi-million-dollar fine of Watson in whatever he rules. Okay, relative to the fact that the Browns structured that contract specifically because of Watson, Jack Duffin, who was on the show Friday, tweeted this out. Watson's minimum $1.035 million base plus signing bonus is no surprise. Other Browns that Andrew Berry signing on a year one of an extension to the contract that were minimum: Hooper, Garrett, John Johnson III, Chubb, Teller, Hill, Keenum, Jackson, Walker. It's pretty much everybody who signed a long-term, multi-million-dollar deal has been on the same first-year minimum. So the conspiracy theory there with how they structured the deal, it doesn't match the facts of how Andrew Berry has structured contracts. So welcome in Scott Petrak. He is the Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can also read him on Brown Zone. Scott, you and I are talking. I don't believe in the conspiracy theory. I do understand, the Browns structured it that way. It helps Deshaun, but that's not the only reason they did it. It helps them with salary cap.
Yeah, if you want to start with that last point, the Browns, that's how Andrew Berry has structured a lot of contracts, and I get that. And Deshaun Watson wasn't an outlier in that regard. Having said that, the Browns knew that Deshaun Watson's case was special, and they knew that he could be suspended for part, if not a great deal, of the 2022 season. So structuring it the way they did really benefited Deshaun Watson, and I do understand why the league and maybe other owners would not appreciate that fact, and why part of the appeal to Peter C. Harvey is to raise the fine, because it doesn't sit well. If you believe that Deshaun Watson is guilty of whatever accusations, it doesn't sit well that he would only lose $345,000 of $46 million.
Yeah, and I get that, and I fully expect there to be a pretty hefty fine when it comes back to ruling. All right, Kareem Hunt held out of team drills for the first couple of days, returned yesterday, has requested to be traded. Today, Nick Chubb, NFL Network, on how important Hunt is just to what the Browns want to do.
How important is it for him? And I know business gets in the way sometimes for him to be, along with you in this running game.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, Kareem, he's my best friend on and off the field. I mean, he's a great person to be around. I couldn't imagine playing without him. I want him to be here, whatever they got to do to keep him here. I want to play with Kareem.
Everyone says you're Batman, obviously. We've seen Batman stuff online. You didn't say that he's Robin, because you don't want to, Robin's like the little kid here. Yeah. You said he's Thanos. He's
Kareem like Scorpion. I don't know if you know about Scorpion.
Okay.
Mortal Kombat. That's what Kareem likes.
Okay.
Yeah. Beast.
Yeah.
Can they work something out? Do you think?
I mean, that's not a question for me, but I hope we can do whatever we got to do to keep him.
And Scott, that was actually over the weekend. It's a player's day off today, so I misspoke on when it was. But how do you think this gets resolved? The Browns come out and said they're not going to trade him. It's not a surprise.
Yeah, I don't think the Browns are going to waver there unless some team really bangs down their door and makes a great offer, which just doesn't seem likely. Teams don't go trading for running backs very often or give up a lot. So I think the Browns are going to stand firm, kind of like they did with David Njoku a couple years ago, and hope that Kareem Hunt realizes that his best approach is to kind of suck it up, practice hard, play hard like he always does, try to win a bunch of games, have good stats, and then either earn himself a big contract from the Browns next year or elsewhere. Maybe they change their mind if he continues to be a pain. But I just don't think Kareem has a whole lot of leverage right now. And I think the Browns understand that he's more valuable to them than what they are going to get in a trade. At least that's what I see. I mean, he's more valuable than a late-round draft pick. He's probably more valuable than a backup linebacker receiver. So, therefore, why would you part with him?
The only concern about guys that request trades and don't get them granted, the whole thing with Odell last year, is there any way you see that kind of snowballing into that, or different guy, different time?
Yeah, I think it's a different guy. I think Odell is kind of a unicorn, right? He'd been asking for a trade for a long time. Odell had, and he never kind of got a really good read on Odell. And one day he wanted to be here, the next day he didn't. And I think Kareem's kind of baseline is that he likes being here, and we know it's his hometown, and he wants to bring a Super Bowl to his friends and family. The team that they've rooted for their whole lives. So I understand the frustration, right? Everybody wants to make more money, and it's the last year of a contract. But I kind of who knows what Kareem feels in his heart of hearts. But just have been around him for a couple of years, I could see him coming to terms with the fact that he does have to be here for another year and make the best of that.
The other thing is the salary structure for running backs. He's getting paid pretty well for a running back. Is there any intriguing, wide receiver that you think he could be flipped for, or even even a quarterback if the suspension comes up to 12, or does that just not add up?
Yeah, I think it's hard with the quarterback, right? Running back, quarterback, it doesn't really equate. Maybe if you find the right receiver that's looking for a new spot, a team looking to get rid of, a receiver that's maybe disgruntled, maybe in the same salary circumstance or contract circumstance as Kareem Hunt is, you could convince me that was a better option. But outside of that, Nick Chubb just said it. Kareem Hunt is really valuable to what this team does. He gives Nick Chubb a break. He's your third down back. I think they're going to play, if Kareem Hunt stays on the team, I think Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are going to be on the field together more than we've seen in the past. You can play him out of the slot. You can just do a lot with him where his value is so high, especially if you don't have Deshaun Watson. Then you really need to rely on that running game. So why would you trade your second best running back?
Yeah, I think that's probably what Andrew Berry was thinking when he said, yeah, we're not going to do that. Before we take a quick break, so David Bell, Anthony Schwartz returned to practice over the weekend. How were they moving around? And are they able to make up the time they missed, do you think?
Yeah. I think so. It's tough, though, especially for the rookie. And, Schwartz is a young guy, too, who didn't play a ton last year and missed a bunch of training camp a year ago with a hamstring. I saw Schwartz get by a defensive back yesterday, but then couldn't complete the catch. And the DB got his hand in there, but it's a kind of contested catch you'd hope he'd make. Dropped another one earlier in practice, so I think he's still kind of shaking that rust off. David Bell, who doesn't drop balls, dropped one in individuals. It wasn't a perfect throw, but something he makes. I didn't watch him a ton, but maybe looked a little tentative, which I think is to be, kind of to be expected when he missed time. And it's not a great injury. He's got that stress reaction in the foot. There's a little crack. It was a little crack in there. Maybe you're a little hesitant until you get enough reps under your belt. So it's still early, but they need to show something. And we've talked about it a million times, Dave, because there's question marks at that receiver position if those two guys don't fill the big roles that the Browns want them to fill.
Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can also read him on Brown Zone. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Scott also had an interesting interview with Jordan Elliott. He'll tell us about it. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking about Browns with Browns beat reporter Scott Petrak. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Got a bunch of them. This is about the Deshaun Watson decision and the NFL's appeal.
Hello, this is Glenn Studevant, formerly of Berea. Do you think the NFL would have been wiser to accept Judge Sue Robinson's recommendation rather than appeal? If they did that, the media would whine about it for a week or two and then get back to talking about football or the latest controversy. As is, this is going to remain a distraction indefinitely, like the suspension. They will lose some fringe fans, but those of us who buy tickets, jerseys, hats, and other items will still watch the game and spend our money. When Colin Kaepernick took the knee, there were those that stopped watching, but the league went on and still made money. As always, I appreciate your answers on the voice of Truth and Reason.
Yes, Dave, this is your boy from Vegas. I'm just going ahead and make a comment and show the hypocrisy about the NFL. They go with Sue Robinson, who is a judge. She lays down her ruling, and then they appeal it and hand it to a guy, Mr. Harvey, who's a district attorney. Don't you think, if they were really concerned or they wanted to be even or fair-handed about this, that they kind of would have put it in the district attorney's hands first and then made the judge the final arbitrator, since she's more qualified than someone who's trying to lock somebody up or is trying to go the other way. Thank you. I wonder what you could feel about that. Go Browns.
There you go, using reason and logic. Scott, when you look at the process, it was collectively bargained. So the NFL is going to do what the NFL wants to do, and they always have.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line, that the union, the NFLPA, agreed to this, and they got the union got the layer it wanted, right, which was Sue Robinson, the independent arbitrator, disciplinary officer. But if the NFL wasn't satisfied with the ruling, it had the right to appeal, and the right to appeal it to either Commissioner Roger Goodell or somebody he appointed. And the union knew that was coming. So, I understand the frustration of fans. I do. But this is part of the process. And, when they talk about the PR, it continues to be brought up, and that's not good for the league. I understand that, and I agree with that point. I would say that the league looked at that when it decided to appeal and said they thought it was more important to strengthen the punishment against Deshaun Watson, even though the story has continued and will continue, because there's some people in the league office that feel what Deshaun Watson did was so troublesome that they could not live with just a 6-game suspension and the minimal fine.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on the league's perception of that. And then the other thing, we've gotten a number of people that want to know, well, why would the Players Association agree to that? You got to remember, the Players Association, what is the percentage of players that have to deal with league discipline? It's probably 1-2%. So you're worried about the masses. You're worried about 55%. So that's why you give on the areas where it only affects 1 to 2% of your rank and file. All right.
That's a great point. Not to mention there's so many things in a collective bargaining agreement, right? The salary cap, the revenue, all those things. This is 1 point of a million.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to something a little more pleasant. You got to talk to Jordan Elliott, defensive tackle. Like wide receiver, that's an area that young guys are going to get the opportunity to step up. What did you find out about Elliott, and take us through that?
Yeah, I went into the interview knowing it's going to be a big year for him, right? In year 3, and he's got a starting role, which he didn't have the previous 2 years. What I didn't know was that he'd be so honest about what's kind of been holding him back. He's got a half sack, no tackles for loss in the first 2 years, which is, I think he played 32 games out of the 33 possible. So he played a decent amount, but just didn't have any impact. And he said it was because he didn't have the necessary focus and commitment. And he found that within himself after last season. Part of it was looking at the stats, realizing that he hadn't done what he needed to do. Part of it was looking at the situation of, hey, it's my 3rd year, I better do something, and I'm probably going to be a starter. The team needs me to step up. But he stayed in Berea, or in Northeast Ohio, worked out at the Browns facility 5 days a week. And I asked him, well, what'd you do in the past? And he said, I would work out 1 or 2 days a week. And I was stunned, because you hear these stories about these players just working out so much in the offseason, and he didn't. And I said, well, what were you doing instead? And he said, BSing. He just wasn't working hard, and he didn't feel that desire. And then something clicked inside him, and he put on a bunch of muscle. He's at 325. The coaches say he's moving like he's at 280, and he's looked good in this first week and a half, almost 2 weeks of practice. So the Browns expect him to have a big role, and he feels like he's in a place mentally where he can fill that role like he needs to.
Yeah, and identifying why you didn't do what you thought you should, which he just did, pretty big step. Another thing you've written about Martin Emerson, and you kind of mentioned, not only is he does he have the physical tools, but he's got the mental side of it. Take us through that and what you found with Emerson.
Yeah, I mean, the size is what jumps out at you, right? He's 6'2", 201. He looks like a safety linebacker when he's out in the field, which is really impressive. But he also is a guy that studies. He's a guy that moves. Right? If you can't move, it doesn't matter how big you are. Then they turn you into a safety. instead of letting you play corner. But he moves, and the Browns, they had a video of him the other day having a late close and kind of jumping and knocking the ball away, which is something that you can do when you're that size, when you have that kind of length and wingspan. If a guy gets by you, you can catch up quicker. So the Browns like him. You know, he's in that right now with Denzel Ward still not practicing. It's Emerson and A.J. Green and Greedy Williams all getting reps at that second corner opposite Greg Newsome. And then when Newsome slides in to the slot for 3 receiver packages, it's a couple of those guys. So he's been getting a lot of quality reps, you know, still refining his technique, but there's a lot to like with him.
Yeah, they are deep in that secondary, which is can never have enough of them. Jacob Phillips, another one. What do you again, you wrote an article about it. What do you think, how is he approaching this year?
It's about staying healthy for him, right? Which makes all the sense in the world given his first 2 years. First year he had a knee injury at week 1. Missed some time. I think then he hurt it again, missed some more time. It was just almost a lost season for him. Last year, in the joint practices with the Giants, he tears a bicep. He came back late in the year, played some, and the Browns just really like his potential. They like his speed. That's why he's a 3rd-round pick in 2020 out of LSU. And they would love for him to be that middle linebacker, right? They have Anthony Walker Jr. back in case Phillips doesn't stay healthy or can't handle it, right? And we saw Walker's capable of playing it. He can play other positions at linebacker, other linebacker positions. He's a really smart guy. He's a team leader. But they like the idea of Jacob Phillips being a long-term answer. And what really intrigues me is the pairing of him and JOK. We know how fast JOK is, and Phillips is also is that type of linebacker, where in nickel spots, in nickel packages, you put those two guys together, and that speed element really jumps out. And it's what Joe Woods is looking for from his defense.
Yeah, that will be fun to watch if those two can perform like the Browns think they can. All right, before we go to break, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one, a defensive line question.
Hi, guys. Love the show. Quick question. Several defensive end edge rushers on the 90-man roster. Any of them besides Garrett and Clowney starting to emerge from the pack? And also, how are the perennial projects Forbes, Weaver, and Alex Taylor performing? Thank you much for listening.
Appreciate all the voicemail, Scott. I'll let you take that one.
I do think I've seen some stuff from Alex Wright, the rookie defensive end. Not only is he big, but he's got some moves. He's got athleticism. The Browns love the idea of him sliding inside to tackle in pass rush situations. So he has shown up. Chase Winovich, I haven't seen a ton out of him. He's not going to play a bunch in rundowns. He's just not big enough. He's going to need to make the team and make his living as the 3rd down pass rusher off the edge. And I still need to see more of that from him. And then Curtis Weaver, it's interesting. I haven't seen much of him since he's been on the team, but I did see him get a sack in camp. I still think he's a long shot to make this roster. The Browns also drafted Isaiah Thomas at defensive end. They have some other bodies, Isaac Rochelle, who's a veteran, if they want to go that route. So I think it's a real long shot for Weaver, but I did see him make 1 sack in camp. And then, Drew Forbes, it's interesting. I kind of ruled him out when I was thinking about who would make the team, when I kind of predicted the 53-man roster early in camp. But when Joe Bitonio got a day off the other day, Blake Kantz got a couple early snaps at left guard with the first team, but then it was Drew Forbes. So it seems like the Browns and the coaches want to give him a shot to win one of those backup spots on the interior. And as far as Alex Taylor, he still feels like he's not there yet. Just from looking at how the rotation's going, you got Chris Hubbard and James Hudson III is kind of your 3rd and 4th tackles. And I just have a hard time thinking the Browns keep a 5th tackle.
Scott Petrek, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk some special teams. Some guys have really stood out so far in camp. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
Maybe cliche, but there's no I in team. The only identity that matters is we. The collective effort to love thy neighbor is needed now more than ever. The responsibility behind pronouns such as I, me, and mine impact we, us, and ours. So understand that you make all the difference in the team. He, him, her, or she can't disturb our peace, since we control our destiny as student athletes. This is the power of pronouns.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter. We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the NFL's appeal of the Deshaun Watson suspension.
Hey guys, this is Tony calling from New Jersey. My question is, if Sue Robinson was a federal judge and she couldn't give a ruling beyond the precedent of, set by the NFL, how is it that this new arbitrator could possibly do that? Give a ruling beyond what's set in the CBA. It's the same precedent. How is it that she couldn't go past it, but he potentially can? Explain that to me. Thanks. And go Browns.
All right, as always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, so Peter Harvey helped write the code of conduct, so he understands what the principle was when Roger Goodell put it in. That's why I think that suspension's going to get upped quite a bit. I could be wrong, but the reason he can is he was part of crafting the code of conduct.
Yeah, and there's nothing specific inside the personal conduct policy that kind of prevents the lengthening of the suspension. And nothing that specifically prohibited Sue Robinson from going higher than 6 games. She just paid a lot of attention to precedent. And in her opinion, the precedent was 3 games for a similar offense, but not as egregious and not as multiple. So then she bumped it to 6. And I think Peter C. Harvey has all the room he needs to make it as long as he wants to.
Yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. All right, let's get back to talking a little bit about what we've seen at camp. So I know you did this, and we've heard a little bit about it. Jakeem Grant, they're working with him on making sure that he can carry the ball in both arms. Let's get to that. And I think people are overlooking Grant as a wide receiver. I think fans are. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I watch Dolphins games religiously. I'm intrigued by him as a guy that you throw in there into the mix in the receiving corps.
Yeah, as far as the arm thing, I thought that was really interesting how he always carried it in his right arm like for his whole career. And Mike Pfeiffer noticed that, the special teams coordinator, and said, hey, we're going to have to go the other way just because it's not only does it protect the ball when you're going to your left, you can use that right arm as a stiff arm. And so now he's using it. When he doesn't do it, he does push-ups. He said he's probably done 50 push-ups because of that. But who knows? Maybe it makes him a better returner, and he's already, a Pro Bowl guy last year. And then, that role on offense, we talked about receiver a million times. Maybe he can give the Browns a little burst there. Now, I don't think you can play him every play. But, he's had to take a bunch of reps at receiver with Bell and Schwartz and Woods and Javon Wims being out for a good chunk of camp. And he's shown up. He's made some plays. He's gotten open deep a couple times, even though Watson didn't hit him. He made a catch of a bullet Watson pass over the middle. So I think there is reason to think that he can be a spark, not, and run some of the gadget stuff, the end arounds, the jet sweep mode, that action that frees up some things in the running game, but can also be a legitimate threat as a receiver to, maybe catch 2 or 3 balls a game.
Yeah, the way I think of it is, if this guy is good at returning a football when 11 guys are trying to stop him, and if he shows the hands, get him the ball in space, then he's only got to beat 3 or 4 of them.
Right? Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. And we saw when the Browns had JoJo Natson a couple of years ago, they used him on a bunch of that action when, and then they used it Odell, but Odell was a different, he was a threat always. But you saw him do it with JoJo Natson, who I don't think has nearly the skill as Jakeem Grant is a receiver or even as kind of a breakaway returner. So I think there is value to that, no doubt. And, yeah, you could see that bubble screen get, more bubble screens. The Browns didn't run a ton of those in the last couple of years, but depending on who's playing quarterback, maybe you can add that to the offense, and then you spread everybody out for the inside handoffs to Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, there's a lot that you can do with the pieces that they have offensively. All right, one of the guys who has really been the talk of training camp is the rookie kicker that the Browns took in the 4th round, Cade York. So here's pressure. There's game-winning pressure. Then there's 45-yard field goal pressure so that you and your teammates don't have to go to meetings after it. He drills the 45-yard field goal, and his teammates are going to carry him off the field because they can get out of meetings. Cade York has shown incredible accuracy from 50 yards plus. He's not getting ahead of himself.
Anything in my range, I'm going out there thinking the same way. Just 3 points on the board, whether it's a short field goal, long field goal, PAT, just they put me out there for it. I'm going to have confidence in myself, and I'm going to put it through. So.
Kate, when you were, I think it was the first day of camp when fans were after you were signing some deals, that's our kicker. Did you know Browns fans love their kicker so much?
No, I mean, it's the first time I've ever been at practice and seen thousands of people out there. It's a little new thing, so it's pretty cool to see that, but also I can't really get my motivation from that, even though it's awesome and I love the fans, but that could be gone just as quick if I had a bad day, so.
How many times have you been able to get out before 70 stadiums since you
It was all during OTAs, since now they're having like concerts and stuff there, and now have team reps here. So I got out there probably 5, 6, 7 times. Can't remember exactly how much, but I was there every week during OTAs.
And Scott, it's impressive in the mindset of a kicker. He has the perfect mindset. If I miss, fans aren't going to be as happy.
Right, and I like what he said about his range, which whatever they put me out there for, because I don't think he wants to limit himself. And you showed that kick from yesterday, and I actually was walking behind the other goalpost. I had a decent angle on it, and that thing goes hard left. It was almost like the Rich Carlos over the left upright. But I think Kevin Stefanski wanted it to be good regardless to give the guys the night off. But he still drilled it. But then he had a kick. All the days run together. So one of these days. And it was a 53-yarder that banged off the top of the left upright and through. But it just shows you the strength of his leg, because it was at the top of the upright that it hit before it carried him through. So, he's probably good from 65. Could he make one from 68 in perfect, summer hot weather? Maybe. But it's just a threat that the Browns haven't had. And he certainly seems like a kid with the right confidence to have such a pressure-packed job.
Yeah, you like everything you hear so far, and again, I realize even the preseason kicks don't matter. Doesn't matter until the games start counting. This is from ESPN.com. Achilles heel for each and every one of the 14 teams they consider Super Bowl contenders. So the Browns, they consider it a 56.7 chance to make the playoffs. Achilles heel, wide receiver. And I get why the wide receiver core would be on that. The other thing to say is, if the young guys aren't getting it done, cut down day is probably a better time to find more of what you're looking for than it would be right now.
Oh yeah, I think that's safe to say for sure. Unless you're willing to make a trade, right? Whether that's Kareem Hunt or Dearness Johnson, somebody of value to you. But yeah, I think you're right. And it's a receiver spot that we're going to keep talking about until you feel better about David Bell, till you feel better about Anthony Schwartz or whoever it is, Jakeem Grant Sr. You just need to feel better about that depth to feel better about the receiving core. And I think tight end plays into it. To me, there's still question marks there. Can David Njoku be the true number one you need him to be. Harrison Bryant had a good day yesterday. Can he step into the number 2 role? There's not a whole lot of depth behind them. And then, how your receivers and tight ends play depends a lot on your quarterback play. So, that's always going to be the biggest question mark.
Yeah, everything is interrelated on that offensive side of the ball when you're throwing it. Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break. Teams ranked by talent under 25 years old. We'll see where the Browns check in. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Deshaun Watson's suspension and appeal by the NFL.
Hello, y'all. This is Steve, longtime Browns fan in the ATL. If the NFL's so-called independent arbiter rules a year-plus indefinite suspension, players, coaches, and owners should get very concerned. If all you need is accusations with no criminal charges, expect sleazy lawyers to start piling up accusers to extort money from players. The players won't take them to court because even if they toss it out in court for lack of evidence, as they did with Deshaun, that doesn't matter to the NFL. All you need are the accusations themselves. Players will be forced to settle for fear of losing a year's salary or possibly their career. And the NFL will be complicit in aiding and abetting in this extortion with their overly harsh penalties. What a huge mess they will create. The floodgates of false claims will be opened up. Wouldn't it be ironic if these unscrupulous lawyers went after the NFL's self-righteous talking heads or even Goodell himself? Hope they never spurned the wrong woman or visited a massage therapist. Let's hope the NFL gains some sanity and does the right thing, but I wouldn't bet on it. Meanwhile, we have a great team this year, and Browns fans have our players' backs. We love them, so go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, Watson isn't the first player that will likely be suspended without anything criminal happening to him. And I know every year at the rookie symposium, they talk to the rookies coming into the league that they are targets. It's just, it's the way it is. So they've been told this repeatedly from the time they're welcomed into the league.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's important to say that this is not new, that guys who have not been criminally charged have been suspended because of the personal conduct policy, because the league determined guys, just because they weren't found guilty or weren't charged doesn't mean they didn't do something. It's not like the criminal justice system is perfect. And I think it's a misrepresentation to act like all you need is an accusation or an allegation for a player to be punished by the league. That's not true. The league did like a 15-month investigation into Deshaun Watson, and Sue L. Robinson, who was independent, was jointly appointed by the league and the NFLPA, concluded that he violated 3 separate parts of the personal conduct policy. And she found the 4 women that the NFL put up in its case, she found them believable and not Deshaun Watson. So I don't think it's fair at all to say that these are necessarily unscrupulous lawyers or people or random women with a grudge. Sue L. Robinson found the opposite of that. So I'm not saying that could never happen, but there's a bunch of steps it would have to go through from accusation to suspension, and I think we need to remember that.
Yep, I would agree with you All right, the Browns have released their first unofficial depth chart, so let's take a look. We'll look at it. Offense, not a whole lot of surprises. You know, you got Cooper, then the line is Bitonio and Teller at the guards, tackles Conklin and Wills, Harris at center, and Njoku is the tight end, Peoples-Jones. So it's kind of what you would expect from the offensive side of things.
Yeah, the only two things that jumped out at me a little bit were now they're listing Johnny Stanton the fourth as a tight end. They don't even have fullback on there, which he's been practicing a lot of tight end, but you know, maybe they just didn't want to use a spot for fullback. But it's interesting because he's more of a fullback to me. And then, you know, we talked about Drew Forbes a little earlier, and they still have Blake Hance ahead of him on the depth chart. But it'll be interesting to see, because those, you know, the depth chart obviously is unofficial. Interesting to see how Kevin Stefanski plays those guys Friday night in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and you know the other thing is Stanton, that you could keep him as a tight end, and then if you decide you want to use him as a fullback, boy, we got a guy that you can line up at fullback that knows what we're doing. All right, let's look on the defensive side of the ball. And again, these are unofficial depth charts. Of note, Elliott and Bryant, the two in the inside of the tackles that are listed as starters. The parentheses mean that currently injured Denzel Ward. But again, nothing of a surprise. I mean, Phillips and Anthony Walker co-starters at that middle linebacker spot.
Yeah, I think that shows the respect that the coaches have for Anthony Walker Jr. They don't want to bump him down this early in training camp. You know, I think they really respect what he does for this team, especially as a leader, and they think he can play, and I think he'll find a role even if he isn't the starter. What that does show you is, to me, a lack of depth at not the Walker part, but in general, the depth chart, a lack of depth at linebacker, right? It's got Tony Fields a second, and Dakota Allen is the other two second-string linebackers. You know, Tony Fields had no impact as a rookie last year, was, you know, not healthy or sick or just didn't play very much at all. You know, Dakota Allen, I couldn't tell you much about, even though I'm watching every day. So that feels like a position where maybe there's some additions, you know, it cuts, or, you know, like we talked about trades. Like, that feels like a position maybe the Browns feel like they might have to upgrade before we get to week one.
All right, before I let you go, this is from ESPN.com. Ranking teams by their under 25 talent. Top ranked one, Cowboys. Second, Chargers. Third, Jets. Browns down at number 25. Blue chip players, Jedrick Wills, Greg Newsome, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Notable graduates, Denzel Ward, Ronnie Harrison. I'm not sure why they picked 25. That's kind of a random number. I think ranking the Browns that low does not give an accurate depiction of just how good the young talent is on this. You think that's fair?
I do. I do. I also think it's worth noting that, you know, they're in a different stage of their development, right? They think they can win now and in the next, you know, right now and in the next couple of years. So if that's your plan, then you tend to get older. So, you know, I was surprised that there are only those couple of guys that they mentioned under 25. But plus they didn't have a first-round draft pick this year or a second-round draft pick, which takes, you know, one or two guys away from that likely total. You know, JOK and Newsome were probably on that list last year because they were top draft picks. So I think it speaks more to the roster construction now than it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I would agree. Again, we got some Browns fans that were asking about that. I wouldn't panic about it. 25 is kind of a random number at that point in time. Scott Petrak, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Good stuff. Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks, Dave.
Scott Petrak, make sure you read him. Pages of the Elyria Chronicle Telegram. Catch him online, brownzone.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Brad Ward will join us talking more Browns. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the NFL and Commissioner Roger Goodell.
Hey guys, lifelong Browns fan. I'm almost 70 now, seen a lot of things happen in the NFL, and with all the things that's been going on, I think I've found the root of all the problems, and it's Roger Goodell. The man makes $69 million a year and basically can't make up his mind from player to player or from situation to situation what's going on. He brings in a judge that's supposed to handle all that. He lets her go through all the problems and everything. She comes up with a date. Not enough. So why did he even bring her in? I mean, this guy is supposed to be intelligent, and he hasn't shown me anything in the last few years that would even make him be intelligent. I just kind of want to know what you guys think about him. Do you think he should still be in charge? Thanks a lot. Go Browns. We will overcome this. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Appreciate all the voicemails. I get why Browns fans are frustrated with Roger Goodell. I think he's a really good commissioner. There's a reason that we refer to the NFL as printing money. He runs the league pretty well. The suspension, yeah, he is kind of all over the place like that. Let's welcome in Brad Ward, BrownsWire.com, as well as the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. I get why Browns fans are upset, Brad, but I think don't question how good of a commissioner Roger Goodell is.
Yeah, I mean he's done a great job with the league. The league is probably at the the height of its popularity, so that's hard to argue with. I get where the caller's coming from, not in the sense that, I mean, it wasn't Roger Goodell's decision to put Sue L. Robinson in there. That was all negotiated, right, in the CBA. So I think there's some confusion there a little bit, but he could have left the decision alone, but they felt that wasn't enough. And, they want to come down on the right side of this. I think that he realizes that in the past he may have whiffed on some of these. So I think he's trying to make sure he gets this one right, trying to look at it from an outside point of view. It's hard, right? Because right here, I want him to leave it at that 6 games and let us go on, right?
So I mean, the motivating factor for the NFL is perception in their public persona, because it translates to sponsorship in dollars, and that's that is what it is. It's a business. All right, let's move on to some football questions. So, do you expect Deshaun Watson to continue taking first-team reps? Just your whole thoughts with that? The players day off. They're getting ready for that first game in Jacksonville in a couple of days.
Yeah, it's interesting. I talked about this last night. I'm kind of surprised that they haven't moved to Brissett taking the first team reps already. I'm kind of confused at why, with the information that they have, Dave, right? And Stefanski spoke on it today that he would remain taking the first team reps until they get the decision from the appeal. But my understanding is games 1 through 6 are done. Those are in the books. They're, they never actually appealed the initial sentence, right? So the only thing that could change is game 7 and on. So at this point with the
And again, that's my understanding as well, and we'll go back to you. So yeah, that's my understanding as well. The only thing I can think of, Brad, is he can stay in through training camp. Once the season hits, he's got to go. He's got to go away for 7 games, and he hadn't played. So you're probably trying to get him some live action in this offense. That's my thought.
Yeah, it got to be. I mean, they want to give him as much live.
All right. Again, we're talking with Brad Ward from the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, as well as BrownsWire.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out on the side of the break. We will finish things up with Brad Ward, Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This about everything that the Browns are going through right now.
Dave, as fans of the Cleveland Browns, sad to say the reality of life in the world we live in is being played out before our eyes. 2 athletes. Athlete number 1, who, yes, has done wrong, went through the process and was given a sentence. But the top authority, the NFL, wants to prove a point, and the player no longer matters. The NFL wants to create a false image of themselves, even though in the past they have committed or allowed as bad or worse offenses. Now they want to be judge, jury, and executioner. The athlete number 2, who has been given a second chance, comes to a team and city where he was born and raised. Gives 200% effort, a fan base that loves him, his teammates love him, but all this means nothing. Even though the report came out that Kareem wants to trade, you know as well as I, he wants to stay at Brown. But he wants to be respected for his efforts. Everyone else with his playing time has received additional compensation. Because a business decision needs to be made and money involved, and the player who no longer matters can be replaced by another who is younger and he can be paid less money. Dave, the reality of life is sad, but thank you for having a show where as fans we can give our opinions. Keep up the great work.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails run by our frequent voicemailer. Brad, when you think about it, the issue is it's a salary cap issue, and the salary cap is there, so you can't stockpile, the best at every position. And these are the Browns haven't had to make a decision like this in a number of years because they haven't had the talent they have on the roster. This is what good teams have to do. And I'm not coming down on one side or the other with Kareem Hunt. I'm just saying these are salary cap issues that you have to figure out when you're a good team. So let's hope they have to go through these for the next 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. The roster is getting more expensive every year with every move because they are trying to compete and win a Super Bowl. And Kareem Hunt, this whole situation is very tricky. I don't think it's good practice to get rid of a guy who wants to be there, right? Who wants to, for culture reasons, you want to have that guy in your locker room. However, at the same time, I mean, he's not dealing with very much leverage right now, Dave. He doesn't have much leverage to negotiate with, other than the fact that he's good and he's going to be a big part of the offense, especially with Watson not in it for part of the season. And I think that also, we've seen them do a lot of two-back stuff in camp and in mini camp. And I think that factor as well makes it important for him to at least stick around this year. I don't want to trade him. That's kind of where I come down with it. I think the Browns are right in saying, we have you to a contract. I don't know, maybe they guarantee him some more money because he's on like that incentive-laden per game deal. Maybe they do something like that to make him happy. But I think Andrew Berry has handled these right now and in the past. I mean, he did it with Njoku. He said no to the trade request, and look how that ended up. So hopefully we can work something out with Kareem Hunt. But if not, they at least need him for this year, and they need him to buy in.
Yeah, and by all indications, he said what he needed to say. He's back in, the team drills and all that. The other thing I would say, I never question a player that wants to get paid more. Everybody wants to get paid more, so don't hold it against Kareem Hunt. All right, this from Dog Pound Daily: 5 teams that could trade for Kareem Hunt. Number 5, they say the Kansas City Chiefs. That one would be interesting to me. 4, the Cardinals. That one makes a lot of sense. 3, the Saints. There's a guy named Alvin Kamara there. Patriots they have as number 2. He would be kind of a Bill Belichick kind of running back. Number 1 is the Falcons, and that makes a lot of sense just because they don't have a very good running back. Brad, I don't think there's any way he's going to the Chiefs. I think that ship has sailed, much like Odell Beckham Jr.'s ship in Cleveland has sailed. The Falcons make a lot of sense.
Yeah, there are a couple teams on here. Falcons make a lot of sense. I agree with you. The Patriots make some sense. He is kind of that kind of back, right? I just don't think that Andrew Berry is going to trade him. I don't think that what he's worth to the Browns, Dave, could ever be received back in compensation. I don't think they'll ever recoup the value that he provides for you on the roster. So I just can't see that circumstance playing out.
Yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. All right, before we had the transmission issues we were talking about Watson getting the QB1 reps. Let's go back to that. My thought is, they're running up against it. Once training camp ends, the suspension begins, and then he can't be back in the building for a number of weeks, depending on how the final ruling comes. So they got to get him some action, but they also have to get Brissett. You also have to get, Rosen and Josh Dobbs. You got 4 guys that you got to find a way to get reps.
Yeah, it's a tough situation to be in. I guess where I came down on it was, and I get your point totally, you want to get him as much reps as you can, Watson that is, because he potentially we could be looking at 2 years of not playing, right, in a real game by the time he returns, if the NFL gets their way here, which I kind of feel like they might. So either way, I see the importance in it, but I also see the importance in salvaging this year and getting Brissett ready to play. So at least I think that with the information given, they would have pivoted to like splitting reps between the two. The fact that they're giving all the QB1 reps to Watson right now is a little bit curious, but we'll wait and see how that plays out. I'll reserve judgment, I guess, fully on that one and see how it plays out here.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And, relative to what, they settle on with Watson, my guess, and it's completely a guess, just based on how the NFL works, they're trying to find a sweet spot where this does not get dragged into court, and it may end up being 12 games and a pretty substantial fine that then gets donated to a charity that deals with, domestic violence or whatever. Here's where I arrive at 12 games. Tell me if you think this makes sense. Precedent that they keep referring to with the nonviolent sexual offenses, Jameis Winston, 3 games for an Uber driver. 3 times the 4 that you heard get you to 12. And that might be the high end of where the Players Association doesn't drag this into federal court and just wants it over.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, Dave. It really does. You know, the 4 cases, the 3-game nonviolent infraction with Winston, which was mentioned in Sue Robinson's 15-page ruling, or 16-page, including the conclusion. So, you know, I guess I see exactly where you're coming from. As a fan of the team, 12 games is more punitive than a year is. I would rather them do a year at that point. Him coming back for 5 games or having his contract toll, it's a tough one there. Which one you would prefer, as far as I'm concerned?
Yeah, I'm with you. As a fan, the year probably is less painful because then you probably even explore what it would take to get Jimmy Garoppolo. You do all the due diligence if it is in fact a year. Something just tells me they want it. A year drags it into court. I think the NFLPA, and I think they're trying to find the sweet spot where they get as many games as they can without getting it into court. Brad Ward, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties. I appreciate you, Dave.
Hey, we're doing it live, buddy. The wonders of live internet. As always, great stuff. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, Brad Ward. Make sure you read him. Brownswire.com. You can also catch him, host of the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. See you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow on Sports for CLE.